But in my opinion, public documents are different from private documents because I feel as though public documents can be used to rouse up a
So
group of
are you
people.
expecting private Russian documents to emerge in which they would say, we don't actually mean it, we don't actually want to destroy the Ukrainian nation? It's all a
Well,
prank?
no, no. Yeah, I sort of just want to talk about genocide, I guess, because I watched your video on Lemkins,
Mm-hmm.
and I was like, that was a good video. Um, Now, even though it was a good video, I don't necessarily agree with all the things that he has to say, I guess. So I
Right?
was just wondering if it was possible to kind of hash out more of Lemkin's views because when I search up Lemkin's beliefs on genocide, I think he does define it to be like the gradual destruction
Mm-hmm.
of like
It's not an event,
uh,
it's a
uh
process.
yeah, it's a process, yeah. So it's not just something that is planned ahead of time, right? It's
No,
something that
it's
is
not.
more
It's something that emerges. It's an emergent.
emergent. Okay, gotcha. Oh, you don't mind if I
Eat?
eat
No.
tater tots with chopsticks, right?
No,
Okay,
no,
all
no, no.
right. That's it's a very cheesy thing for me to do. Yeah, but I'm sorry.
It's
So
okay. We all need to eat for sustenance.
yeah, true. Um, so I guess the way I define genocide is that is more akin along the UN definition.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
Well,
However,
that
I
is
can be.
Lemkin's definition, even though it's a bit
Mhm.
um, butchered.
It is a bit butchered, yeah, and I recognize that as well. But I think that basically, it doesn't matter what definition I go with. At the end of the day, I think it just has to have the planned intent part behind it. Um, but I'm not entirely sure if you agree with that.
Well, it cannot be always planned intent because if you have planned intent, then you could, technically speaking, exclude the Holocaust from being a genocide on a technicality.
How so? From what little I know, because I'm not a Holocaust scholar, um, they had Hitler planned. I'm sure Hitler like knew what was going on. He would plan it out, and then everything was planned. Like they had a entire economy centered around the death camps, right?
It
Or
was emergent. The tools sort of um, came into their. Let's just say that the possibility and the tools came to them along the way to create this infrastructure like machine to eradicate Jewish people. We do need to keep in mind that a lot of the Holocaust was also mass executions by fire squadrons, mass starvation in the
mm-hmm.
ghettos, and other means, which proved to be very troublesome for the Nazi and then Polish and Ukrainian collaborators who were put in as executioners because oftentimes German soldiers just couldn't take the pressure, which brought Nazi
Mm.
Germany to the final solution, which would take out the human element as much as possible out of the whole equation.
Okay, yeah. Um, I think that I try to go with a little bit looser than what they did during the Srebrenica trials.
Mm-hmm.
I think what they looked at was I think one of the things they
Srebrenica.
looked at, obviously, other than the the obvious stuff like the tractors and whatever, right?
Mm-hmm.
I think they also looked at stuff like paperwork.
Mm-hmm.
So, for example, Directive 7, I think, was a month before the actual actions of the genocide, that July. And I think they also had Directive 4. Uh, but I'm not sure they presented it specifically during the tribunal. But from what I know, these are cited pretty often in terms of like paperwork.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, so I don't, in my opinion, we shouldn't really require that. I guess
The
it's more
planning
like
or
yeah, the plan, like in my opinion, right? Like the paperwork, basically the evidence of proof being paperwork, right? Because I recognize that in a lot of scenarios, paperwork can be destroyed, right?
right or missing.
Yeah.
Although in
Yeah.
some cases, paperwork is all we have.
Yeah. Um, so I think that if there is enough evidence to the point where you can't deny it anymore, then I think that that could be done for proven genocide, I think.
Yes. So I guess,
Um,
in my also view, a good example of genocide being emergent rather than pre-planned would be things like the southwestern genocide of Herero and Nama people. Are you familiar with?
no.
The German Empire colonized southwestern Africa, and they basically oppressed the Herero and Nama people, who then, um, well, they rose up to fight against the Germans, and they were
Hmm.
brutally suppressed. And the German military leadership came to the conclusion that if the Herero people cannot be reined in, they must be utterly destroyed.
Okay, so it was basically either being able to be reined in or genocide. That was like
Yes,
their two
that is
options.
that was the whole idea behind the so-called race war, which was when
Okay.
two races occupy a single space, one of them has to either rule over the other or destroy it. And
Oh,
since
okay.
since the Germans decided that they cannot rule over the Herero because they rose up, they need to be utterly destroyed. The decision was emergent, it was not pre planned.
I see. By emergent, do you mean that they didn't plan beforehand that like, oh
To
yeah,
destroy them, yes.
we're gonna wipe them out, right? Like
Yes,
it's like during the process
yes,
rather than before the process.
yes,
Oh, okay. I, ca- do, here's the thing: is that I think that a genocide can be initiated in the middle of a conflict. So I
mm-hmm.
don't think we disagree there.
Right,
I think that, for example, if there's a war and
yes,
then suddenly like a general that actually has like a good control over the masses
mm-hmm.
was like, you know what, we're gonna move all the babies away, and then
Mm-hmm.
kill all the fighting men, right? Then that would be, I think, an action in genocide because you're trying to prevent the existence of that race, no
Yes,
matter where they are. Yeah.
process that was between 1904 and 1908. And some say that it became a little bit of a blueprint for what became the Holocaust, especially since a lot of the soldiers from that time later joined the SS.
I
So
see.
maybe we could
Mm,
go to the beginning and maybe talk about what genocide is, what are
hmm.
the characteristics, what differentiates genocide from other crimes.
Sure. Yeah, from what I know, genocide is the destruction
Mm-hmm.
of one group based on its either immutable characteristics or like I know there's one that says political, but I'm
Mm-hmm.
not sure how to define that. I guess like is it like or ethnic? Well, let's just say ethnic, all right, because that is the more solid ground to stand on. Or
There are a
let's
few categories: religious,
or
ethnical.
religious as well. Yeah, for example, if you get rid of all the Jews, that would also be a genocide.
Well, that was
Um,
racial.
oh yeah, well, racial and yeah, I mean at that point,
Jewish
they're
people
sort
were
of
not really genocided based on Judaism. They were genocided based on being Jewish.
mm, okay. So from what I know, Jewish is a racial
I
thing,
mean,
and
that's
then
what the
Judaism is the
that is
Judaism is the yeah.
basically what emerged at the beginning of the national project, the racialization of Jewish people.
Okay. Um, so basically, if someone during that process, uh, basically no longer wanted to be Jewish and was like, you know what, I'm a non-Jew now, right? They would still be genocided
Yes,
because of their like because they can't get rid of their ethnicity, basically.
yes, they cannot stop being Jewish.
Yeah. Okay, that makes a lot more sense. Okay. Yeah, for me, genocide, I think there has to be a mental element. Obviously, this is something that you've heard a lot. We've all heard a lot, right?
Mm-hmm.
The
Mental
intent to
element.
destroy, yeah, the intent to destroy in whole and or part a national, ethnical, racial, or religious group as such. For me, at least, this can be initiated in even in the middle of the conflict, like if it was planned out in the middle of the conflict.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and the second one is a physical element, which includes, well, I mean, basically this is pretty obvious, right? It's just killing members of a group, tearing down buildings, tearing down, structures, and then uh, also includes forcibly transferring children of a group to another group,
Yeah.
and stuff like that, right? And I think that in addition to this, I think this is the part where I think people don't really mention,
Mm-hmm.
is Article 3, I guess,
Mm-hmm.
specifically regarding the genocide, conspiracy to commit genocide. Like if
Mm-hmm.
the planning was there, um, but then it wasn't executed yet. Direct and public incitement to commit genocide, like
Mm-hmm.
let's just say in the modern times, tweets, right? Like tweets probably not good. Uh, Attempt to commit genocide,
Mm-hmm.
and complicity in genocide. I think these are all solid definitions. I think it's fine. Um,
Right.
but how they do in court, I think, is another thing, in my opinion, because you can put a lot of vagaries in the charter,
Mm-hmm.
but I would rather look at solid cases such as like the Srebrenica. I think that one I know the most about.
Srebrenica, yes.
Yeah, Srebrenica. Yeah.
So
Because I know. Yeah.
I guess
Mhm.
my big question would be, because it seems like prescient to disentangle those two. What would be the difference
Mhm.
between a genocide and, let's say, an army sieging a city and being ordered to go into that city and massacre all of its citizens?
Mm, if it's massacring all of its citizens where the one ethnicity was all located inside of the city, that would be a genocide if that planning was done beforehand. But otherwise, it would just be a really bad war crime as well, right? I mean, they're both war
So
crimes,
are we
but I'm just
saying
saying,
that
like,
all sieges
um,
of cities in the history of humankind were genocides? They were
um,
pre-planned. The plan was,
if it was
if the city puts up a defense, the army would go in and massacre everyone.
if the pre-planning was based on the intent to destroy an ethnicity or like an immutable characteristic that is aside from the city's identity, I guess, then sure. But like if the intent was just to take over that city in terms of like territory and land, I
Mm-hmm.
would not consider it.
So
Yeah.
what's the difference between a mass killing and a genocide?
A mass killing would be, well, a genocide
Because a
would be
sacking of a
under
city
mass
would be
killing.
mass killing. That's a massacre. What is the difference between a massacre and a genocide?
Um, a genocide, I think. Well, I mean, I feel like a genocide would be like there's some intersection there, right? Because I massacre. Do you define a massacre as like a physical kind of thing, where, for example, people coming with swords and stuff?
Yes,
I
and
guess.
massacre
Yeah.
everyone, or with guns.
Sure. So, like for example, in a genocide, it doesn't have to be like with guns or swords. It could just be also moving babies away.
Yeah, but
And yeah,
we're comparing killing here.
the difference is that a genocide is intent to a race and ethnicity group, pre-planned, ordained beforehand. But a massacre can
But
be
a
part of a
massacre
genocide.
can also be
It can be
pre-planned.
parts. It can be pre-planned, but if it's pre-planned specifically based on the intent to destroy an ethnicity, then it would become a genocidal act, I think.
What if there's a ethnicity? I mean, in most cities, there was only one ethnicity, so a massacre was basically killing that ethnicity. Was that a genocide?
By accident or planned?
Well, it was planned. The sacking of the city was planned.
Sure, the sacking of the city was planned, but is the intent is the destroying of the ethnicity planned, I guess? Or was that a byproduct of
That
the
is what
sacking
I'm
of the city?
asking.
If
What
it's a
is the
byproduct, sure. So if it's a byproduct, then I would not consider it genocide. But if it is planned beforehand specifically, then yes, it would be a genocide.
right? So in other words, I guess you would agree with me to put it in more scholarly words that in the case of genocide, the purpose of the killing is to achieve a certain outcome. What would you say is that outcome?
The total extermination in whole and a part of a group of people. It's this specifically defined by an immutable characteristic that they can't really escape. Typically, I don't
Well,
know.
there's something
Typically,
more than
typically.
that. That's not really the goal itself. Do you not think? Because
Um,
that's the goal of a massacre, the destruction of a group. The killing is the goal of a massacre. But in
yeah, the
genocide,
killing.
the goal itself is something else. There is something else that is uh, in the mind of the genociders universally when they commit a genocide. What do you think that goal is?
That goal is extermination. I'm sure, right?
No, no, it's not.
No.
The extermination is often seen as an unpleasant duty that has to be done,
I,
a
I mean,
moral duty.
well, that's more of the rationalization, right?
No, the goal is
That
something
they
else. Do you want me to tell you, or would you like to try to?
I guess for me, the way I think about like a genocide, right?
Mm-hmm.
Um, it doesn't matter how you try to rationalize it.
It's
I
not
guess like you
about
can rational,
rationalization, it's about the goal, what you want to achieve.
yeah, but the the thing you're trying to achieve is just like extermination in my mind, right? Like
No,
in my mind, this is
no,
how I
no, no,
define
no.
it.
That's just the means to achieving the goal. Do you understand?
If the goal is like kind of like racial solitude
No,
or superiority or anything like that,
no,
then
no,
it's not.
no, none of these things.
Wait, just give me it. Just give me it. It's fine. Just give me it.
The
Yeah.
goal is to achieve a better world that can only be achieved without the group existing. The group is an obstacle to achieving a better world, a morally better world.
Well, uh, but I mean that can be a rationalization, right?
That is a goal. That is
For
not just a
genocide.
rational. No, 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 no. If you want to achieve a clean room, then a mess is not a rationalization. Cleaning up the mess is not a rational. A clean room is not a rationalization to get rid of a mess. Getting rid of a mess is a means to achieve the clean room that you want.
Um. Well, genocide. The equivalent of this would be like in order to uh like all it is that I want to get rid of the dirtiness inside of the room.
Yeah. And the
That
dirtiness
is
would
my
be the
intention.
group that stands in the way to a clean world.
Yeah, but it's not. Let's just say, what if I just simply wanted to clean the room because I have a compulsion to do so, like an addiction or an obsession to do so? Then in that case, I think it should still be called genocide, right?
But that is not how genocides operate. There's no compulsion. If the killing itself is the goal, then it's just a massacre.
No, no. But I'm talking about specifically about the room example, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like you can try to clean up the room
Yeah.
with different reasons. One of the most likely reason is to make the room better, to make the room cleaner, right?
Yes.
But let's just say that somebody has a kind of compulsion in their mind to clean up a room. Um, if they have a compulsion in their mind, their goal is not to make the room cleaner. It is
Yes.
to,
But then it is something else. It is not the same thing anymore then.
okay, what would that be in your mind?
A compulsion.
A compulsion, sure, but in terms then if we relate this back to genocide, I guess, like
Mm-hmm.
for example, if you accidentally erase a group, but your goal was not to make like a better world or anything like that. Let's just say, for example,
How can you incidentally erase a group?
uh, well, we have to. I guess it's like if your goal was to conquer a piece of land, right? And
Mm-hmm.
let's just say that you were, let's just say you weren't very, I don't know, you weren't really thinking ahead, and you're not very cognizant either. Okay,
Yeah.
so like a, like a Mongol back then or something. I don't know, not insulting them or anything, but like basically they went forward, they conquered a bunch of land. In that
Mm-hmm.
case, they can accidentally totally erase like four ethnicities over the course of several months because they were raising villages, right?
Yes.
In that case,
That would
I
be mass
wouldn't
murder.
consider. Well, yeah, that would be mass murder.
Yes.
But the goal there was not targeting an ethnicity specifically.
Yes. The goal was not
It
to achieve a better world without the targeted group.
Y- well, yeah, yeah, but the intent to specifically erase that group is not there.
Yes.
It is, huh?
Correct.
Yeah, it's not there. Their goal was simply because there was a lot of powerful men. They want to grab land and they want to grab power.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, that's just
And
like
oftentimes it led
sort
to
of how I view it.
massacres in which the massacres reasoning was the pleasure of killing itself, which is also what differentiates a genocide from a mass killing. But this is a
Um,
very important part of a genocide. The
Most of the
moral,
time, yeah.
yes?
Yeah, mass killings would probably be most of the time. I guess important to a genocide. I guess, yeah.
No, I'm saying that there is a differentiation between a mass killing and a genocide. In a mass killing, the killing itself is the point. In a genocide, the point is the result of the killing, not the killing itself. The world without the group.
Mm. Okay, so if you define a genocide as the world without the group,
No,
then for
I'm
me,
saying that is the purpose of enacting the genocide. That is the goal of enacting the genocide. Achieving a world without that group existing. The point of a mass killing is the pleasure
well,
of killing itself.
yeah, then I agree with you, right? Because in terms of a genocide, you do want to achieve the extermination of that group. Yeah, you want to prevent a possible future in which that group
Yes.
exists.
But the killing
Yeah.
of the group itself was not the thing. The thing was we want a world with which this group does not exist. The killing of the group as a unfortunate thing we need to do to achieve this world. We don't take any pleasure in it. In fact, the Nazis, since the Holocaust is a big example,
Mm-hmm.
actually put soldiers who killed Jewish people for personal pleasure on trial.
Really?
Yes,
I didn't know that.
because the Nazis were very strict about this morality, about the moral goal of getting the world rid of the filth, which were the Jewish people, and anyone who did it for personal lower pleasure was put on trial. And in that ironic sense, Jewish people were post mortem giving back their humanity.
Okay, interesting. Sorry, I choked on tater tots. Jesus Christ. um, oh my God, tater tots. Holy crap. Okay, sorry, this is very silly. Um,
We have to remember
um,
that genociders, the people that
sure.
commit genocide, see themselves as I've said to you in our private talks,
Mhm.
moral agents. They see
Yeah,
themselves as people committing a moral good to the world.
I think I generally agree with that. Yeah. Um, but I mean, for me, it just boils down to intent. If the intent is there, then For me, it's the rest is sufficient causes to believe it's a genocide.
So what is the intent?
Well, the intent is to achieve extermination.
To what
But for
end?
you, but huh? Hmm?
To what end?
To want okay, I mean, if you want in your definition, then it is a world without that group, which I think is the same definition, I guess,
As what?
as the extermination of that group.
Sort of.
Well, I mean, well, no, well, sort of, because your definition assumes that the people who are perpetuating the thing are superior moral agents. I think is probably the additional nuance, right? If that makes sense.
They do see themselves as that, yes. They operate under their own type of morality.
Yeah. Can I refer to a specific example?
Mm-hmm.
So uh for example, the Bosnian genocide, I wrote some notes here.
Mm-hmm.
I think Directive 7 actually had the words create an unbearable situation of total insecurity, with no hope of further survival or life for the inhabitants of Srebrenica. And I
Mm-hmm.
think this was written a month before the massacres, multiple massacres. And they arrived in Srebrenica with excavators with no other purpose but to dig mass graves. So these are the specific pieces of evidence they presented at the tribunal.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and another thing is like they dug out trenches. They had buildings that operate like death camps in a way. They also had the football stadium, which they had the a mass shooting take
Mm-hmm.
place. And then finally, I think what Judge Almir Rodriguez said during the tribunal was, by deciding to kill all the men of Srebrenica fighting age, a decision was taken to make it impossible for the Bosnian Muslim people of Srebrenica to survive. Stated otherwise,
Mm-hmm.
what was ethnic cleansing became genocide. So that
I'm
was,
sorry, could you repeat that? The last
yeah,
part?
yeah. So his final ruling was, by deciding to kill all the men of Srebrenica of fighting age, a
Mm-hmm.
decision was taken to make it impossible for the Bosnian Muslim people of Srebrenica to survive. Stated otherwise, what was ethnic cleansing became genocide.
Mm-hmm.
Um, yeah.
I think I heard you once compare an ethnic cleansing to genocide.
Hmm?
I
Sorry.
think I've heard you once compare an ethnic cleansing to genocide.
I think ethnic cleansing is a step leading up to genocide if you view it as like a progression lenses.
I think
But
they are totally different things.
um, I, I mean, I would say they're cousins of each other. They're not entirely different, but
In what
why
way?
do you, I'm curious as to see,
Well, the
but
purpose of ethnic cleansing is to move a group. Well, ethnic cleansing, as the name implies, is to clean an ethnicity from an unwanted group and expel it from a territory.
okay. Um,
That
so
is
that's not necessarily with the intent to destroy that group,
no.
but
That is a
um,
yes.
but by moving that group, if sorry, I thought you were going to say something. So by moving that group accidentally, if you kill that group, um like entirely that group, right? Because by trying to forcibly move them, right?
Mm-hmm.
uh would that be genocide?
Well, no, because the intent to destroy is not there.
Yeah, I
It
think
is
I
to
agree
move
with
them.
you. Yeah, I agree with you.
And many ethnic cleansings did not end in the deaths of people, like exchanges of populations during World War One.
mm, yeah, or I think even for World War II, when you're taking over German villages, you are forcibly moving them more inwards because they're fleeing out of danger of their life, right? um that would be an act of ethnic cleansing in a way.
Well, that would be more like you assume they move from one place to another inside a country, right?
Yeah, it's Germans moving out of the village because the Allies are taking over the
And
village.
they move somewhere else in Germany?
They're probably moving deeper into
Well,
Germany.
there would be internal displacement, no?
Uh, Internal displacement, but wouldn't it still be? Does ethnic cleansing, in your definition, have the intent of moving an ethnic group specifically, or
Yeah,
would it just be
away
displacement?
from the
Okay.
terrain in order to, well, cleanse the ethnicity, ethnic cleansing. That's in the name.
Okay.
That is a
Okay.
very
That.
specific term that emerged during the rise of nation states
Okay. That makes
because
sense. Yeah.
Europe was a country of multinational countries
Mm-hmm.
before nation states, and peoples that lived in countries for many generations became outsiders upon the formation of the nation states. Germans that lived in many different countries became German citizens and were expelled, you know,
Mm,
thrown out.
okay. So for example, if the Allies were pushing people outside of the villages and then not letting them come back, you know, probably whether or not
I
because of
mean,
the
they
fact
would
they were
have to
German,
make that
that would
part
be
of
ethnic
Germany
cleansing.
not Germany anymore. And
Yeah,
in which case that
yeah.
would be ethnic cleansing.
Okay, that makes sense. That makes sense. So I guess. Mm,
Like with Poland, parts
mm-hmm.
of Germany became not Germany after World War II, they became Poland, and about 3 million German people were moved away from those terrains.
Okay, I see. Oh, hold on. Let me see if I can turn you up a little bit. Can you turn yourself up a tiny bit? Apparently,
Am I
some people are
quiet?
having. Oh, hold on. No, 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 no. It's okay. It's okay. Don't worry about it. I think I turned you up. You don't have to do anything.
Okay.
Yeah.
But of
Um.
course, there's the issue is that you and Foodshops are talking about one example that had been able to enter into the UN. Sri Lanka's Tamils had no such luxury, but there is a strong case that it was genocide what happened in Sri Lanka.
Yeah. I try not to define only on the basis of legal stuff because then you would be missing out on probably a lot of genocides that
Mm-hmm.
were never passed through court, right?
Mm-hmm. Or
Um.
even moved to court.
Yeah. Uh. I think did the Rwanda genocide actually land in court or did that not was never landed in court when it was labeled like that?
Rwanda genocide.
Hmm.
I believe it might have been put. If
Yeah,
I'm
no, it's
thinking
okay.
about the
Yeah, it's
right.
not a big deal. Yeah. Because I think I've heard about like the God, that was a horrible genocide. Holy crap.
You know how that
Yeah,
was enacted, right?
yeah, yes, because not only did they kill people with the machetes, right?
Mm-hmm. Yes.
But they also like it was a wild killing of using machetes, and in addition to like, and that was also pre-planned beforehand as well, from what I remember. They prepared it beforehand, and then in addition, they had men go into women's, and rape them, to give them STDs on purpose, so then they are unable to give good birth, and that would prevent the future of that. And that was probably one of the biggest pieces
Although
of
usually
evidence.
they were just chopped up together with everybody else, but
Yeah, yeah, pretty much, or the rape part. Yeah, but basically, that I think the genocidal rape as an act was more was like in my opinion is like the bigger piece of evidence because it's like why the heck would you do that with specifically with STDs,
mm-hmm.
right? If you didn't have like the full intent of preventing the future of an ethnic group, right? It
Yes.
was really bad. Yeah, like
And of
there
course,
were accounts of that.
even
Yeah.
in that case, the whole we are morally righteous people comes into
Hmm.
play. Uh,
Yeah.
I was watching. Well, I'm still reading the book by the person that I told you about. He actually had an opportunity to talk with one of the people that took part in the Rwanda genocide.
Oh, really? Okay.
Mm-hmm.
How did that go? I guess I'm curious.
Well, he basically said that he was tricked by his government. He thought he was doing the right thing. He wanted to be
Mm,
a good citizen, a good neighbor. He didn't want to leave his friends alone to do the job, so he took on the machete and he chopped up his neighbors. He thought it
mm,
was the moral thing to do. He thought that it was expected of him to do, and he thought that the moral thing was to uphold the expectations that the state has put upon him, and then he said that he was betrayed because the state was wrong.
I see.
He
And
was
I'm
in jail and
guessing.
he sort of served his sentence. And then he sort of, which might sound grotesque as well,
Mm-hmm.
under his morality, he said that he went to a woman who survived the massacre of
Mm-hmm.
his neighbors, and he
Mm-hmm.
apologized for killing the family with the machete, and he said that he did the morally right thing apologizing,
Mm-hmm.
but the woman did the immoral thing by telling him that she does not forgive him. And he said, how
Mm.
could she do such a hurtful thing to me? So that's a
That's
whole.
interesting because I mean that's a point in your favor, right? That they view themselves as moral agents. But I think I agree with that as well. That it's very hard to do evil things on purpose. Like if you were to, I think a lot of people imagine themselves to be good guys in their minds, that they were doing the right thing.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but then afterwards, when they realize like what kind of things that they're doing, like kind of wake up call, like after a manic state, I guess.
Well, that is
I think.
that is a very interesting thing about genocide,
Mm-hmm.
and a very big distinction between a genocide and mass killing. A mass killing is sort of dictated by a pleasure of killing, this sort of
Mm-hmm.
rush of rape and killing and plundering. And when that rush fades, come the price of conscience. People feel bad about what they did. But it is different with genocide. With genocide, people operate under a certain moral framework in which they see what they do as a necessary good that they have to commit. And
Mm.
oftentimes, people that commit genocide come back to their normal lives afterwards and feel no remorse whatsoever, because in their moral framework, what they did was necessary, and even if unpleasant and painful, it was at the end of the day a morally good thing. So there would be no coming of guilt later on.
I see. Um, yeah, I agree with that. I totally see that, and which is, I guess, a little bit sucky, but because you would wish that after genocide was over, you would want people to come to their senses, right? But from what I know, I think I
Yes.
had a German friend once
Mm-hmm.
who had like a great grandfather or a grandfather or something like that, who was basically like more of the Nazi side of things, right?
Mm-hmm.
Um, and yeah, he doesn't really feel too bad. I don't know. Like he basically after the thing was over, he was like, "Yeah, I'm just being chilling," you know.
Yeah,
And then it's
that's
like, okay, yeah, I don't know. I'm guessing, right? Because yeah,
that's
it just seems
because
like
you
they don't really
use the
take it
term come
seriously.
back to their senses, but from usually from the perspective of people
Mm-hmm.
um, committing genocide, they don't have any senses to come back to. They're already operating under perfect sense. They're already
Mm-hmm.
operating under perfect morality.
Yeah, and then after that was over, I'm sure that they also think, oh my God, you know what? I'm just going to disagree. It just so happens that my side lost and that's it, right? Like, that's the
Mm-hmm.
only thing they accept is that, oh, my side lost because they suffered military losses, they suffered whatever the heck, right? However, um, my side was still the correct side. My side was still the right side to be on, right?
Yes.
I think that that's typically a thought as well. Um, and again, not to go back to the Bosnian thing again, but I will. uh, but I think I've talked with Serbs in the past, uh, and one particular Serb, um, basically when we were discussing this, he does actually he basically tries to downplay the Srebrenica genocide
Mm-hmm.
and says that, oh yeah, everybody had the full willpower and capacity to commit genocide, but it just so happens that the Serbians were in that place in time to commit the act itself.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
Oh,
and
okay. I'm gonna give you this bit in a moment.
oh, Oh, sure thing. Yeah. So for me, I have a problem with that, obviously, because it's like, okay, well, first of all, we live in this timeline, right?
Mm-hmm.
And you're basically saying that all humans have the capacity to commit genocide, which I totally agree with you, right?
Mm-hmm.
But however, you still have to recognize that your people in the past, right, at least, were the ones who actually perpetrated, the actual massacres. And yeah, it was hard to get that into him, because at the end of the day he basically said, I truly believe that our people, our nation, are the best nation under the sun, or something like that. Like, it was some nationalistic rhetoric. And I can't bring myself to, obviously, like, dislike him or anything like that, because obviously he's been a friend, but in the past. Okay, he's gone now, but
Mm-hmm.
uh yeah, it's just mm, yeah, that's about it. Anyway, what are you gonna show me?
Yes. Are you familiar with? I mean, you have to be familiar with Heinrich Himmler, right?
Himmler.
Himmler, yes, Heinrich
Well,
Himmler.
yeah, I've heard of his name, but I'm not too familiar with, like, his
Reichsführer
philosophy.
SS Heinrich Himmler.
Mm-hmm.
A basic rule for the SS men must be hold absolutely honest, decent, loyal, and camaraderie must be uh, to members of our own blood and to nobody else.
Hmm. I mean, it is racial superiority, right?
Russian Czechs and other Slavs, Himmler resumed, possessed no inherent value as human beings. For the SS, these human animals were only valuable insofar as they labored under the lordship of the superior Aryan Germans. If while building a tank ditch 10,000 Russian women die from weakness or not, that it interests me only insofar as the tank ditch is built for Germany. He did not flinch from stating, whatever good blood of our kind exists in these people, we should take by stealing their children, if necessary, and raising them ourselves.
Mm. Yeah, that makes sense to me, because for me, I guess, do you know that Hitler gave an order for the Soviets, I think, when he was fighting them at the time, that he wanted to I think kill most of the men, but then killed less women, or something like that. But basically it was I correct me if I'm wrong, but is it a common practice to target men
Yes,
of a group in genocides?
yes.
Yes. Oh, yes. Okay.
In the
Um,
southwestern Africa case, the men were killed, the women and the children were driven into the desert.
I see. Um, because from what I know, if the if the men were all killed, what would that entail? I guess. Because I'm trying to logically follow. It basically it's that they can no longer fight, right? Is that
Mm-hmm.
what it is? Like, they're
Probably.
unable to become
That was
soldiers.
often the logic, yes.
Okay, I see. Yeah, because yeah, even though it might be rational or irrational, their
Mm-hmm.
logic might be to um kill the men, so then they would be unable to, so then this the ethnicity would be unable to have, like, a kind of standing army to
Or an
defend itself.
uprising or whatever
Yeah.
else.
Yeah, so they would be subject to subjugation, which would be apartheid, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
Um, or you would just eliminate the group, would just be genocide. Yeah.
Right. So, I
Um,
guess because this is a good point, this is why it's important to understand the processes that lead to genocide, how societal environment creates these views of necessity of genocide. My next question would be what is the main purpose of the UN Genocide Convention? Why does it exist?
um, I'm gonna be honest. I'm not entirely sure. The thing is that from what you presented in your video, it seems like they tend to waffle around a lot and then go like, you know what, we're just going to we like they want to. It seems like they want to prosecute uh further states and countries based off of these definitions, but only if they appear in court or something.
Mm-hmm.
Basically, it's like a legal thing rather than a moral thing,
Mm-hmm.
which is why there might be an issue with it. Well, there's issue with it insofar that, oh yeah, you're only going to be labeled a genocide if you manage to get the eyes of the UN, right? Yeah.
Yes. So the purpose of the UN Genocide Convention would be to punish genocide, yes?
Yeah.
Are there any other reasons for its existence?
Probably also to recognize genocide as it pops up because according to Article 3, it would, like, even before a genocide, it would say that conspiracy, incitement, attempt, and complicity. So when it comes to these,
Mm-hmm.
it seems like they don't want to wait until it happens for to stop it. They want to be able to charge it before it happens,
To
it
charge it
seems.
before it happens?
Yeah, because you can. I would assume you're able to charge some group under Article 3. Hopefully, I don't know,
Well,
but
there
what
is
that entails, we don't know what it looks like. I don't know if I know what that looks like. You might know more. But,
I mean,
yeah.
there's an even more important thing. There's after all, we're talking about human lives. Can you read the title of the genocide? Do you have it open?
The title of which one?
What is the Genocide Convention called?
Uh, Convention on the Prevention and Punishment
Of the
of
crime of
uh
genocide.
of the crime of
So I
genocide.
would
Yeah.
say that the other purpose is in the name, no?
Yeah, on the prevention. Yes, I
Prevention,
agree.
yes.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, as a member of the audience said, it is important to understand the processes that lead to genocide because that is the only way in which we can recognize early signs of genocide and prevent it before it
I
even
agree with
happens.
you. Yeah, I agree with you. Yeah. Um uh but for the steps leading up to genocide, um I think it's good to recognize the warning signs. That's why they're called warning signs and they're not
Mm-hmm.
like for certain, right? For example, if you have mass killings start over, let's just say that people were being dragged into the night screaming, and it was only specifically men for some reason.
Mm-hmm.
By the way, this happened. And if that does happen, then that is a warning sign. That's not necessarily like in an alternate timeline. It could lead to a genocide, but it doesn't have to always lead to a genocide. It seems. So
Yes.
that would be an early warning sign. Yeah.
But stopping it would, in my opinion, come under the prevention of genocide.
Uh, yeah, because it's an atrocious act. It seems like a war crime to me, or not even war crime, but just seems like something really bad. So we have to stop it anyway, no matter how you label it.
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah.
What about
Um.
the topic that seems very contentious within the US, the topic of the transgenocide?
Um. I think that with if you're talking about specifically in regards to a trans genocide, I think the warning signs can be recognized, and that's why they have to be labeled as warning signs. But in terms of actual plans being drawn up, I think once plans have been drawn up to specifically eliminate transgender people, then
Are you
I
saying there
think
are no plans drafted to label and target specifically trans people?
uh there are absolutely legislation that is drafted to target transgender people,
Mm-hmm.
but uh sure, it's for the erasure of that group within like a state or even federally, right?
Yes.
But then the intent is
To erase that
uh
group from existence.
the intent is let me think about it. Um because I haven't really thought about the transgenocide too much, right? Or like this topic specifically too much. Um but I think the intent uh I think you can technically charge it under planning, but like for me, I guess it's like, is there detailed plans? Because for me, I would imagine there's a difference between detailed plans and more like, okay, we're drafting up legislation because we just don't like trans people,
I
right?
mean, that is what it is. We don't like them existing. It's not just I don't like them because they smell funny and I don't like them, but I can tolerate them. I don't like them, so I want them gone. In fact, it falls squarely under the I want morally a world in which this group does not exist. That is my goal. I want the world without trans people existing.
Correct me if I'm wrong, but a lot of conservatives, I'm sure they actually believe that, I don't mind them existing, but I don't want them to exist near me. Um,
So in this country,
in this country, yeah. But I'm sure some people have genocidal thoughts about transgender people as well as genocidal writings about them.
keep in mind,
But
most genocides are not the Holocaust or the Paraimos in scope. Most genocidal perpetrators are perfectly happy to just get rid of a group in their immediate territory. What made the Holocaust and the Paraimos unique is the wish to eliminate all Jewish people around the world, wherever they would be, and all Roma people, wherever they would be. That made it unique. But eliminating a group in a certain country falls under genocide, even if in other countries that uh, representatives of that group are allowed to just be.
but so the contention I guess I have with
Because
this is that
remember, a genocide is the destruction in whole or in part.
sure, I agree with you on the definition, but in terms of what is actually happening right now, I would say that if you moved all the transgender people to another country, that I mean, you could classify that more as an ethnic cleansing with the goal of ethnic cleansing rather than genocide.
Well, trans people are not a ethnicity,
Well, sure, but it
um,
would be analogous. Does that make sense? Like analogous, yeah,
but
paralleled.
the goal of the legislation is not to um, move trans people to Canada. It's to make it impossible for trans people to get healthcare or to function in the country, which is one of the points in the UN convention, making it difficult, extremely difficult to exist.
Yes, I agree with that. That can be considered a genocidal act. However,
Which
uh,
falls squarely under prevention.
but
Because if we notice
well,
genocidal
well,
acts,
but however, even if something can be a genocidal act, actually no, I want to take that back because a genocidal act implies that there's intent behind it.
of
Um,
course,
I I don't think so. There's enough mudding in the water where you can't really square down or nail down like a plan specifically where they would go, you know what, we need to completely exterminate the transgender people within the United States.
can you talk
Yeah.
more about the muddying of the water?
Sure. Like for example, some representatives and some politicians, I'm sure, would agree with, oh yeah, I just don't want to see transgender people in my site, and some other maybe like a really fringe amount of politicians, well, not fringe, but like I'm saying like a let's just say an amount of politicians would go, you know what, I do actually want to completely exterminate transgender people from the United States,
Or I'm
right?
pretty sure when legislation was drafted in Nazi Germany to segregate Jewish people to different benches, to different parks, to different swimming pools, there
Mhm.
were some Nazi politicians that surely thought, I don't really want to exterminate all Jewish people, I just want them out of my sight, no?
Yeah, that can be a warning sign, but then that isn't like a total and utter indicator for a genocide, right?
Well, we
Like for
can
example,
only
at the
go by
time,
warning signs
yeah,
because
yeah,
if we
we can, yeah,
don't
so we,
if we don't prevent based on warning signs, then we are basically not preventing at all. We're just waiting for it to happen.
Well, I would then counter that with like we're not really just standing around and waiting for something really bad to happen. People are still out there trying to campaign against these legislation and stuff. In terms of prescriptions, I'm sure we will line up in that because it's like, because it's voting, right? It's just voting. And then you would also
Well,
have to
it's
do
more than
protests,
voting. It's also, from what I,
protests.
it's
Yeah, and
also contacting your local officials and doing many
yeah,
more things, no?
yeah. Basically, the standard processes for active political change, right? Yeah.
But the actions
Um,
will be different if you realize what the effect is heading, what the direction is, no?
I guess yes, yes. But in my opinion, there should be a higher burden of proof when it comes to like I recognize that there can be early warning signs, but that early warning signs should only serve as an indicator, as a means to okay, we need a total investigation of what's going on, rather than
Well,
okay, we're
prevention is
going to
not an
say that the
investigation. Prevention is prevention. We are stopping this before
well,
it will happen.
yeah, yes, but that is part of prevention. Investigation is part of prevention as well, right? You want to investigate what is going on behind the scenes, behind the office doors, right? If people are genuinely trying to plan out a transgender genocide, that is obviously very bad, right? And that they should be stopped and they should be prosecuted as well. I
So
agree with you
I
there.
actually took part in a conference. The conference was called The Wasted Lessons of the Holocaust, and the author of the book Final Solutions, Genociders and Their Methods was part of that um, conference. And I actually asked him that question directly. I'm not sure if you would agree with his
Hmm.
answer. I actually didn't ask about trans people, I asked about the LGBT broadly.
Hmm.
If the persecution targeting of the LGBT could be in any way framed as genocide. And his answer was this, that first of all, Lemkin's definition was, of course, lowered, in which
Hmm.
case the social groups were removed, and social groups would absolutely include the LGBT.
Hmm.
And that when two conditions are met, a targeting of a group, a specific attack on a group, and those who attack the group speaking of creating a world without that group, if those two conditions are present, then mechanisms of prevention should go into effect. Would you agree with this statement?
On the surface, I would agree, but I want to also tell you why I disagree when I'm looking into it further. Because uh, so there's one example I would like to bring up.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so World War II again, but this time from
World
the
War II.
Allies' end.
All right.
Yeah, this time from the Allies' end. The implied intent seems to be there, right? For example, if if for example, if we didn't really dig further for proven intent, for example, they were exclusively targeting German people. They did the Dresden fire bombings. They did the where a lot of civilians died. They did a lot of other war crimes. They were taking over towns and villages and pushing them inwards to a point where like things became really, really insufferable for them as well. And then uh but however, obviously in retrospect, we don't really view what the Allies did to the Nazi Germany as like a genocide. We view that as, you know, what I guess going against like a tyrannical regime or something, right? The true intent is not to genocide, but to go against the Nazis, because the Nazis could technically be classified under a social group. Well, not a social group, but like a group that is under the
Political.
protection of, yeah, political, yeah, pretty much.
So, was there a talk from the Allies that once they're done, there will be no Germany and no more German people to speak of?
I'm sh- I can't pull up any specific
And
examples,
I
but I'm
mean
sure there.
on an official level, not between soldiers saying we're gonna kill those Germans.
On an official level. Um yeah, I have not really looked into that specific part, so I unfortunately cannot
Because when
tell
it
you.
comes to trans people, you do have
Um,
Trump that says, if I win, I will just get rid of the whole thing. You do have people that draft those bills and say transness should be eradicated from this country completely.
um I like I said, you can make a really good argument, and I think you do make a good argument for specifically under Article 3, I think, where
In
you
which
can
case, I
say
think that preventative mechanisms should come into play to protect the group.
sure, but then I guess another question is like what kind of preventative measures, right? Because
Shutting down the
uh
bills.
shutting down the bills,
Yes.
like
Or even
forcibly.
preventing people that want to produce them from being able to do so in the future.
I
I'd go as so far because it's the GOP, it's the party of the devil. So I'd go as far as to eliminating them from public life altogether. But there are
um
many methods of
that's a lot.
prevention.
Hold on, I'm trying to take that all in. That's a lot. Shutting down the bills.
It
That
would be the bare minimum. These will not go any further. These will not be even discussed or voted upon. These are
even
genocidal in nature.
even without voting or anything like
Because
that,
right
I
now
guess.
we are fighting not to let them pass, but if they would be deemed genocidal in nature and preventative measure would come into place, then it would not be a matter of fighting for them not to come into law. They would be just struck out. They would be thrown away as genocidal in nature, no?
I have a problem with that.
You have a problem
Yes.
with bills targeting specific groups being crossed out because of their genocidal nature?
Because from what I know, um the United States has an equal protections clause. Does trans people not clause, but like they have legislation, I think federal legislation protecting minority groups. Would I think transgender people would classify under that, right?
Well, it doesn't protect them from those bills being passed.
Yes, I agree with you. However, I think that when they are um, making these bills happen, they have the plausible
She and
deniability
her.
of saying, "Oh yeah, these aren't, these aren't really like we're not trying to eradicate. The purpose of this bill is not to eradicate the transgender people; it's to protect our kids or something." Which I think is like for example, I think their excuses are really silly, right? But the thing is that we still have
But
to
you have to finish the
place like a
sentence. You have to protect the kids from what? From the
from
existence
transgender
of this group.
people. Well,
Which
yes,
means we want to eradicate this group.
I agree with you,
You could very
but the
well replace we want
hold
to
on.
eradicate Jewish people with we just want to protect the German people from the Jewish, which was also said.
Sure, I agree with you, but it seems so far that if there is a possible future in which the legislation is pushed forward towards, but
Mm-hmm.
then uh, democracy beats it, right? Let's just say that voting manages to beat it and there's enough public support to beat it. I don't see any need to put any genocidal prevention measures in place. So
So does that mean we
even though
gamble?
the bills, well, a little bit, yeah, because in my opinion, sometimes gambling is not necessarily bad, but it is something
I think
sometimes the correct
gambling
thing to
with
do.
people's lives is pretty bad.
Yes, sure, you can view it as that, but I also view it as gambling US democracy as well, because when you are just shutting down a bill without popular support in the form of representatives and etc., you are gambling with the foundation of the nation, even though you
I
can
mean,
make a good argument
that
of
is the
it being
nature of the UN Genocide Convention, stripping away the sovereignty of nations to an extent.
to an extent, yes, but
To an
when we
extent
look
that they
at
cannot enact
ju-
a genocide on their population.
yeah, but when we look at the specific prior ruling that I do know, it seems as though for the planning part, it has to be much more coordinated on the national level where okay, we are planning to absolutely hone in and exterminate all of them within like this span of time or something like that, right?
Isn't
Like
it
it's something more specific.
what's happening with the bills? What other planning
Uh
could you have than legislation? Isn't it the ultimate planning? Drafting law and putting it into place?
like I said before, the bills can be viewed as a warning sign, but the bills, there's no evidence to show that all of the bills are sort of working in conjunction in order to bring about the next step from there, where it's like,
What
okay,
is
we're
the
going to start
next
burning some
step?
bodies now. Well, the next
With
step
bring
would be
what?
like mass killings or
No,
something.
no, that is incorrect. A genocide does
Uh,
not need mass killing.
well, sure, but I'm just
Like
sorry. I'm just giving an
we're
example
making
out
a big
there. Yeah.
mistake here into conflating all types of genocide into a Holocaust, and that if we do not see clear signs of camps being built, people being rounded up, then we cannot say that it will be a genocide. That is a huge mistake.
I agree that you don't need camps. For example, there's been, these kinds of things happen in the past where there weren't camps. However,
I assume we
I
both
think,
agree that the Uyghur genocide is a thing,
yes, yeah.
and
But
that doesn't entail
do
mass
you
killing.
do you do you know? Yeah, I was gonna ask you about that factual thing. Do you know if mass killings were part of that? Like
No,
it
they're
was not.
not. It's
Okay, yeah, I don't
re-education
know
and
too much about it.
sterilization.
If it's re-education, I wouldn't consider re-education like as big of a step as sterilization. I would say sterilization is definitely more akin to like genocidal rape, where it's like, I think they're sending in like Han men to rape the woman. Uh, yeah, I think that's what's happening there.
So that doesn't have mass killing, and yet we would recognize that as a genocide. Yeah.
Well, yeah, which is why I want to sort of walk back the part where I said mass killings. I
Mm-hmm.
said that was a mistake on my part. Yeah.
Uh-huh.
Um, but misspeak or to say, right? So again, I don't recognize that. Okay, because for example, you can totally have a genocide if the group of one people all look exactly the same,
Mm-hmm.
except you just moved the group of like the babies to another group
Like in
entirely, you can have a
Ukraine.
genocide that way. Sure. Yeah. But for even in that one, I don't know if I would consider that one a genocide yet.
You would not consider the transferring of Ukrainian children to Russia and making them into Russian citizens a genocide?
Well, the physical element would be there. The intent to destroy the Ukrainian people is also there. However, it could entirely be the case as well that they could say all of that and
Well,
on
they
the
also do
surface,
all of that.
or they don't actually mean it, right? They could say all of that, do all of that, but not actually mean it.
What do you mean?
Because what is the real means? The real means could just be taking over the land, right? Like if they simply just want to land, but then they use extermination of the Ukrainian people as an excuse,
They don't need to do
it's
that to take over the
it's
land.
genocide as an excuse. But
The Russian Empire took over all that land without having to exterminate all the people.
well, I don't know about the Russian Empire per se, right? But
Oh,
I'm
I
just
do
only
quite a
talking
lot.
about the Russia right now. Yeah.
So if they say they want to eradicate the Ukrainian nation and they transfer children from um, one group to the other, is it reasonable to then ask, well, do they actually mean it?
I don't agree that actually means they actually mean it.
Well,
The
is it even
reason,
reasonable to ask, do they actually mean it?
oh well, we wouldn't be asking them because they would lie. I
It
think
doesn't matter
a
if
much
they mean it
more.
or not. The actions speak for themselves. We could very well ask, well, the Nazis did exterminate the Jewish people.
Well,
They did say they
I think.
wanted to exterminate it, but did they actually mean it? Who
I
knows?
think that.
We never know if they actually meant it.
In that case,
We
it's
can never prove it,
well,
no
no,
matter
hold on,
what.
hold on. But in that one, it's different because in private, they do actually have, commands and paperwork and evidence to show that, right? Obviously, it's all after the fact, I guess. But that was after it happened,
I mean,
which is
official
sad.
statements basically count as documents. They're just spoken, not
But
written.
but in my opinion, public documents are different from private documents because I feel as though public documents can be used to rouse up a
So,
group of
are you
people.
expecting private Russian documents to emerge in which they would say, we don't actually mean it, we don't actually want to destroy the Ukrainian nation? It's all a
Well,
prank?
no, no. Rather, I think the need to be necessary for the evidence to prove a positive claim, as in like there needs to be papers to say, oh yeah, we are absolutely planning on eradicating all the Ukrainian people. That would suffice for me.
But that's not what that's what does that have to do with the transferring of children from one group to the other?
Uh, I mean, that can happen, but that can
There,
happen not
there. I
necessarily
can
only
guarantee you
specific to the.
100% that there exist internal orders that say we do want to transfer those children and give them Russian passports. I can
It.
already
I
tell
mean,
you without those documents being
that's
unearthed,
and then
that's what's
that's
happening.
100%. I agree with you, right? I 100% agree with you, but I it would need to be moving children to another country.
They are being moved
Um,
to another
with
country, to
I know,
Russia
yes, yes. I agree with you.
and Belarus.
I don't disagree. I don't disagree with you there. Yes, I agree with you. However, it has to be with the express purpose of, okay, we have to eradicate the Ukrainian people because they can
Well, yes, we
also
are
have.
changing them from Ukrainian to Russian.
Yes, but you can do that without the express purpose of
You can do
eradicating
them
the
without
group as a whole.
eradicating them as Ukrainian.
You can transfer babies, right, and then
Mm-hmm.
have them grow up under Russia.
Mm-hmm.
However, it just so believes to me that if there is additional evidence where it comes out where it says something along the lines of like, okay, this is one of the things that we have done in order to completely and utterly eradicate the Ukrainian people,
Such orders
then I
exist in
agree with
no
that.
regimes. There are no orders like this within Nazi Germany. It's
But for
just we
that
are
one, I would
sending
just.
we're sending Jewish people to a camp. It's not we are sending Jewish people to a camp in order to fulfill a bigger plan of eradicating all Jewish people. Such orders do not exist. We're not talking about cartoon villains.
In that scenario, I would say that there's overwhelming evidence in support of that, right? In the terms of like, that's why I think they're different. But in the Ukrainian one, um, I think the Donbass region or something like anyway, they took over a region, but they didn't really systematically kill all the Ukrainians
But
inside of it, right?
you don't have to systematically kill all the people in order to erase their identity and erase Ukrainian as a nation. You just have to kill enough, you just have to kill the elite, and you just have to transfer all the children and make them Russian.
Uh,
The goal
in
is
that
not to eliminate the goal is not to kill 40 million Ukrainian people. The goal is to kill enough regular people and erase Ukrainian intellectual and political elite transfer children and
I
dilute, bring in the Russian,
I have a
enact
question.
Russification, and in that way you erase Ukraine
Sure,
as Ukraine altogether.
sure.
That is a form.
Lemkins actually agrees with Russification. From what I've heard, like he agrees that it's a genocide, right? From what I've searched up, right? Uh, Now I do have a question then.
Mm-hmm.
Um, in your mind, I guess, is it possible to um uh, for me, it's more like if all the other options are completely gone, then that one is the only one left. For example, if the Russians have completely took over the land, and then they haven't really, but then they only took over land, but they left the Ukrainian people alone when they only have administration over the land. For me, that's not a genocide per se, like necessarily as a absolute indicator. I think that if they took over the land and then started systematically disintegrating like killing people and then culturally converting people and etc. That, in my opinion, would be a genocide, right? Because then at that point the land excuse is eliminated, but for right now the land excuse is not eliminated, it seems. For now it seems like Putin might be more of an old world conqueror rather than another Hitler, if that makes sense.
So I guess we agree then, since we already have many mass graves. I assume we both are familiar with what happened in Bucha.
Buchov?
Bucha, yes.
Oh, is that in Srebrenica?
No, it's in Ukraine.
Oh, I don't know. I don't know about these specific locations or anything like that,
When
but
the Russians came in
yeah, just
and
tell me about it.
shot the population in the head of Bucha, a famous mass killing in Bucha. We already know that
Uh,
Russia does exactly what you described,
so they
taking over the
basically
land and mass killing the population in it, and then enacting Russification and bringing in Russians to populate the area. We know what happened in Mariupol.
so
Hundred, like
can I
thousands
ask
of people
there?
killed. Yes, the city emptied, and now Russian people are buying apartments in Mariupol.
I sort of want to ask a question there. So for Mariupol and Buchov, since you know more about that, do you know if, for example, they took over the city and then they still
Executed the people.
executed?
Yes, that's what happened in Bucha.
Oh, okay, interesting. I actually did not know that. For on my side, right? So why is it that you think that then sure, in my definition, it would be considered a genocidal act, yeah.
So yeah,
Um,
Russia is
if
waging a
they
genocidal war against Ukraine.
Yeah, it would be a genocidal act, yeah. But in terms of a genocidal war, a genocidal act doesn't have to constitute like a genocidal war. Is it do you know where the command might come from though to execute that, or um the order to do the mass killings,
Well, it
I
comes
guess?
straight from the top, from Putin, who
Okay.
says
If it
that
comes straight from
Ukraine
the top
is
from Putin,
a
then that's fair.
disease, that Ukraine is not a thing that should be suffered to exist.
Um in that case, then yeah, I would consider that to be genocidal act, yeah, for the mass killings part. Do you know why historians, are there historians right now or people of scholarly excellence, not excellence, I don't want to say excellence, okay, that sounds very pretentious, just basically people up there who would say like, oh yeah, we do recognize what Russia is doing to Ukraine as like a genocide, or a genocidal act.
In fact, yes. At the same
Mm.
conference, the Wasted Lessons of the Holocaust, there was a speaker who spoke on Ukraine, and he said that in his opinion, what is happening, and that was earlier in the conflict, what in his opinion, what is happening in Ukraine does constitute a genocide, a different type of genocide than what most people imagine when they hear the word, but a genocide nonetheless.
Okay, interesting. Yeah, perhaps, yeah, then he is perhaps doing waging a genocidal war, in the sense of
In
that,
fact,
then
the
yeah.
most interesting thing that happened in that conference was when I met that person before. Uh, we met during dinner before his speech, and I said, "Yeah, in my opinion, what's happening in Russia is um, genocide." We spoke in Polish, and his eyes sort of lightened up, and he said, "Oh, I get it. You're Ukrainian." I was like, "No, no, I'm not. I just think it is."
Oh, okay. What just has that happened before where some other Ukrainian person came up to them and then went like, "Yo, by the way, this is what's happening," or what? Why did they say that? I guess.
Well, it's not as easy probably to. I mean, your initial reaction was no, it's not. So
Yeah. Okay, I see.
that was
Um.
probably the logic behind his reasoning. But yeah, he said he agrees with me right after.
Okay, I see. If because I feel like that's probably one of the biggest, because the one that sort of convinced me a little bit more was the part about mass killings. I think the after the territory was occupied and the mass killings were commenced. For me, that's a huge part of trying to convince me that okay, there might actually be genocide going on. Because do you know if Dylan Burns actually covered any of this as
Of
well,
course,
like
many
the mass
times.
killings, right?
Of course,
Okay.
yeah, of
Just
course.
do you know if there's videos that you can send me actually on that one? Yeah.
One moment.
I know that Anna, or Ukrainian Anna, because I've interviewed her before.
I've spoken to
She
her. I think
Yeah,
we're.
she's really nice.
I
Yeah.
would. I would call us friends.
Yeah. Oh, that's cute. Yeah. So she did send me without me asking, okay. She did send me in DMs pictures of rape chambers and the people inside of them who are dead from rape. So it's like
Mm-hmm.
yeah, I mean, I have seen gruesome pictures, yeah. Yeah. And in my opinion, that could be another piece of evidence that can point towards genocidal action as well, because uh rape being a thing of conquering is normal. um that sounds really bad, but I mean, like throughout history it is normal,
What
right?
is? What is
But
happening?
however, the difference that makes it different for me is a rape chamber, right?
Mm-hmm.
um Having a rape chamber implies consistency and reusability. So when these factors are factored in, I think that you can make a stronger case for genocide
What is
there.
YouTube doing? It's translating all the video titles into
Oh,
Polish.
don't worry. At least you can read them, right?
Rosja ma
um.
normalną sytuację.
Oh. Uh. I,
Jesus.
I'm gonna try to pronounce that. Say that 5 times fast. Yeah.
You should try saying stół z powyłamywanymi nogami.
Did
Yeah,
that work?
you tried.
Okay. All right. Um. That's interesting. I wonder if, see, here's what I'm interested in seeing
I
in
know
the
that you
future is,
spoke about it, about
oh,
Bucha many times and the mass graves, mass killings, etc. I'm not sure if there's going to
oh,
be a dedicated video, but
I do actually want to see a dedicated video because I like talking about the topic of genocide. Okay, that sounds terrible as well, but I just listen. Uh, for me, it's just a fascinating topic. That's all.
Mhm.
So yeah, I come from a place of learning.
I mean, I'll
And
look it up, but
yeah, you'll.
just
I
when
hope
I
that
find
so
it, I'm
far
just
I
gonna send it to you.
yeah I hope
Although
that
I'm
so
not
far
sure
I
if there
present
is
this.
a I know that he speaks of it a lot in his.
Hmm. Yeah, because it's like, here's the thing is that I would probably give it like right now I would give it like a 70% genocide, 30% non-genocide. Like I would say that like these I
Seventy
feel like I can
percent
only
genocide.
like chances of it being like a genocide in the end. Like many years later, historians look back on it with a clear mind, with no biases, and just go like, you know what, this is what it is. Um but but yeah, I hope you can understand. I can't. The reason I can't really assign like 100%. kind of thing. Is more like the more symptoms there are, the more I raise the percentages, and the less symptoms there are, the less I have the percentages up. But right now,
Mm-hmm.
if somebody were to ask me, do you think that a genocide is happening there right now? I would say, you know what? I do actually think that a strong case can be made for genocide, right? Like instead of me saying that there is 100% certainty there is genocide there, I'm trying to give the academic way of saying it and say something along the lines of like, a strong case or a weak case or a strong case, right? Like that's a better way to phrase things. Yeah.
And of course, there's the Putin saying that Ukraine is not even a thing. Ukrainians and Russians are one people.
That makes sense. A lot of people from Yugoslavia also said like, oh yeah, these people are not a thing. Croats are not a thing. Yeah, the Bosniaks are not a thing, right? So
which
so
would
so so yeah, it is. Yeah.
which would bring me on a whole rant on the Polish-Lithuanian Commonwealth, on Lithuania, how Lithuania was something totally separate from Russia, etc.
Mm-hmm.
How the
Yeah.
Lithuanian language was a totally separate language from Russian, how it developed separately, how it split into Belarusian and Ukrainian. That's a
Yeah.
different.
That's interesting. Yeah, because I actually don't know all that much about that thing. I know that apparently the Yugoslavia and the USSR were allies. Were they? Or I don't remember, but I know that at some point they were allies before the USSR fell apart, and the Yugoslavia fell apart later, and then all of that stuff happened. And I think one particular good point to always point out is also that they prosecuted. From what I heard, they also prosecuted people on the Croats end and also on the Serbian end as well for committing war crimes. I know that whenever people bring up the UN, they say like, "Oh, the UN were biased against Serbians," right? No, no, they prosecuted Serbians under genocide, but they also prosecuted the people who were going against the Serbians at the time for war crimes as well, from what I remember. So it was interesting to yeah, if true. Okay, if true. All right. I should probably look up. It's been a while since I've done a genocide research. Yeah, it's been a long time.
Well, I'm
I would
reading
say.
a lot about it right now.
What made you read about genocide per se? I guess.
Holodomor.
Oh, are you still planning on debating Loner Box one day?
Oh, yes.
Oh, did you guys plan out something?
Well, I might contact him soon. I have a lot more reading to do before I like this book. I'm gonna try to find it. Oh, there we go. It's here. Oof. Oh, that one's pretty good. Wielki
Oh,
głód na Ukrainie.
oh, I don't know what that says.
The Great Hunger in Ukraine, 1932-1933.
Interesting.
And
Yeah.
this
Okay.
book's just primary sources. It's like a thick book filled with documents, orders, letters. So I'll have to vet through this, for one. I'll have to
Yeah.
go through the Gebert book. I'm also reading because to understand the genocide, you probably have to understand the person that was the main architect. So I'm reading a new biography of Stalin by Oleg Klevnyuk. That's the
Interesting.
book.
Yeah,
And all of them are
I would be
quite fat, so it'll
I would
keep
actually
me.
be yeah, I would actually be curious as to know about that because I think a Holodomor conversation with you would be really interesting. But however, I have not caught up on Holodomor for months now at this point. So yeah, the last time I've searched up anything on it, which is why I don't really stand by any of the things I said in the past
Right.
about the
So I'm reading
Holodomor,
about our
right?
little comrade
Um,
Soso. Soso was a terrible rascal.
oh,
Yeah. You know Soso?
that sounds familiar. That does sound familiar, Sasov. Yeah.
Soso.
Um. Oh, huh? Who?
Soso.
Soso?
Soso. Soso.
Soso?
Yeah,
Was that a person who worked under Stalin?
that was Stalin. That was his little Georgian nickname, sort of
Oh,
thing, to his
that's
name.
his nickname. Okay, I didn't know that. Yeah, here's the thing: is that when it comes to USSR related things, I am incredibly uh not well versed in things like that, right? Like
Because
I'm not. I'm just straight up not. Yeah.
oh, his full Josep Bessarionis Tejugashvili. Bessarionis because his father had a really cool name, Bessarion.
Bessarion?
Bessarion, yes.
Bessarion?
Yeah, Bessarion.
Yes. Okay. All right, I said it correctly.
His mother was named Catherine, and her little cute Georgian nickname was Keka.
Keka.
Keka, yes.
Nice. I've seen
So,
earlier pictures of Stalin.
so
He
Soso
actually was
and Keka.
Soto and Kaka.
Keka.
Soso and Kaka.
Keka.
Nice. That's cute. That's cute. Yeah.
Well, I'm gonna
I
say that the photo of the 15-year-old Stalin is pretty terrifying. I
oh
have it in this
okay.
book.
I've seen Stalin as a young man and he was quite handsome. So
Well, this Stalin is. I find this photo to be very terrifying.
oh my god. Average
That is Stalin at 15 years old at the Tiflis
Jesus.
Seminarium.
Okay, I see. I see. Wow. All right. Interesting. I think would be interesting is for me to I guess I want to see you also debate tankies as well. Have you tried challenging tankies?
Like who?
I don't know any of the crazy people on Twitch, I
Hassan?
guess.
Hassan Piker?
Yeah, I think you should message Hassan, yeah.
I should
Or
totally
you
message
can
Hassan.
yeah, you should totally message
That
Hassan.
should.
I actually
That
messaged
would. That would. You message them?
well back then when he was not popular and he was with Destiny, I remember I either messaged him or I replied to him on Twitter and then he replied back to me because we were just arguing back and forth on Twitter and that's it. But that was back then before it blew up, right? He was, you know,
A small little bean.
before the bridge burning. Yeah,
Because
exactly.
you before you burned the bridge with him?
Before Destiny burnt the bridge with Hassan.
Debate
Yeah,
has. Oh no. MAGA Republicans. MAGA, sorry,
yeah.
MAGA socialists. Sorry.
MAGA socialists.
So
Do you know
you're advising me to debate Hassan.
infrared?
I mean that would
You
be
should.
great for the channel growth, debating Hassan.
It well, true. That is true. Or you can any other prominent, I guess, tanky out there. Well,
Are there
well,
any prominent tankies out there apart from Hassan Piker?
no. Well, like I'm not gonna say moral. Listen. I hate using the word prominent because it implies there's something
MAGA
positive about
communists.
their presence in this space, but I would only consider their presence to be very negative.
I
I think
would agree.
unless it was like trying to get people as a starting point into politics, and then they stop watching them right afterwards to continue diving into more in-depth endeavors, right? But then it seems like they just continue watching them until they burn out. So it's like, okay, like you're not really consuming anything, you know? Yeah, it
Also,
seems.
Conquest has not affirmed that the Holodomor was not a genocide. Far from it, actually.
The conquest of bread.
Robert Conquest, a
Robert
historian.
Conquest. Is that the winter
It's a
harvesting?
historian that spoke
Yeah,
on the Holodomor.
I think Robert. What is it, Robert? Robert what again?
Robert
Sorry.
Conquest. Also, there are many East European historians
Oh, the Harvest of Sorrow.
that are completely thrown out of the discussion about the Holodomor in the West. I could name them from this book, in fact.
Do you know why they were just thrown out?
I don't know, Western supremacy or something. Only, I would assume that many of their works are simply not translated to English.
I see. Do you? Somebody should actually take the time to translate them to English as a passion project. I think that would be important to recognizing, probably bringing more things to light,
That's true.
because it turns out that we are finding out new things all the time about the USSR as well. So
That's
I
right.
think all is fair is fair. Yeah, especially like the kinds of things that Putin has locked away that we haven't even seen yet, right? I think would be interesting to see, like stuff that is in Russian hands, right? Yeah. Who knows? Who
There
knows
we
what kind of
go.
secrets are
The
there?
pioneers of the research are Professor Stanisław Kulczycki, Yuri Shapoval, um, Roman Serbin, Andrea Graziosi, and many others that nobody probably ever
Interesting.
heard of.
I would actually be interested in reading these if they were in English. Yeah. Hmm. Okay. I see. Okay. Yeah. No, this gave me a lot of insight. Um,
I would
onto
say that
these
many
things.
discussions on these topics are highly limited.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. I'm sure. Again, I'm sure we still don't agree on everything.
Hmm.
But however, you have convinced me more on the case of the genocide of Ukrainians,
Right.
perpetrated by the Russians right now. A
Remember,
stronger case. They just say a stronger case. Yeah.
Polish people and Ukrainians are sibling nations.
Polish and you are they? Oh, I didn't know that. Yeah.
And of course, we used to form a single Commonwealth together, the Polish Lithuanian Commonwealth.
Oh, interesting.
Almost the Polish Lithuanian or Ruthenian Commonwealth, but that didn't come to pass, unfortunately. I mean, it
Interesting.
did, but it sort of, but Russia invaded, so.
I see. Um. Huh.
I
Yeah.
mean,
I mean,
Ukrainian as a language is far more similar to Polish than Russian to begin with. We share
more.
70% vocabulary.
Hmm. If Russia does win over Ukraine, um, I
Am I
wonder.
next? It's a high
Yeah,
possibility.
yeah, that's a yeah
I
because
would
because
not
then
count
you
it out.
yeah you would not count it out. I wouldn't count it out either, despite NATO. But like yeah, it's just these days um the UN is slow.
That's right.
Well, it's always been slow actually,
And
but slower.
The US, your country is betraying Ukraine. The grand old party, rather, is betraying Ukraine.
Yeah, from what I remember, I don't know that much about the bill itself, but it's not good. It's not good because again, this is one of the problems with
The grand old party?
democracy. Well, also with democracy, is that I recognize that you're beholden to stuff like that, but at the same time, yeah, it's just really sad.
I mean, when
Yeah,
Trump is
right.
saying that the grand old party should just nuke the deal about the border because Trump wants to base his election campaign around the border, then we can clearly see that the GOP, the Republican Party, is just the party of the devil, no?
These days, it's all transgender. Yeah, I mean they don't even have a platform to run on except for this
I
gay
mean,
panic stuff that's happening. Like
it's as I've said in a short that was made that the Grand Old Party, they want Ukrainians dead. They Trump announced that it wouldn't support Europe should it be attacked. Trump announced that it wouldn't support Taiwan should it be attacked. Um, the Grand Old Party wants the homeless dead or arrested. The Grand Old Party wants trans people dead. What a wonderful party.
they're really bad. I think that the Republicans back like they definitely have the capacity to be the Nazis if they had the power to do so, right? Like if they had absolute power like a like instead of a three-pronged government like we had right now, I think that if they had absolute power like Hitler's party did, yeah, I think we would I'm gonna be honest, okay? I'm not sure if anyone's too safe. Okay, yeah.
Well, who knows what happens once Donald gets into office?
Um, listen, I hope not. This is just my hope. All right. But it would be very bad if he was also prosecuted for crimes that he has done and got into office. So then he would be ruling from a prison cell, and then since he is the chief commanding officer, he could technically command the soldiers to break him out of jail. For
Hitler
I don't know.
Hitler didn't have absolute power, but you could argue that the Nazi Party overall did.
Yeah. Um. I mean, we'll see. We'll see if the U.S. turns into the Fourth Reich. We'll see about that one.
We'll see.
If
In the
so, then the
meantime,
then the world is going to be in a dire state because it's the most powerful country right now. So it's like military wise, especially, right? Because yeah, mm, who knows, right? Especially with nuclear power, you can't really prevent anything here, technically. So it would be like China, right? The reason why nobody ever goes into China to prevent the Uyghurs from being genocided,
that is
is
incorrect, Rice Dwight. That is absolutely incorrect. In a very recent interview,
hmm?
Robert Conquest has absolutely said that the Ukrainian people were targeted. I'm reading my Twitch chat.
Oh, okay. I was like, oh, did I say something
No,
you
no, no,
disagree
no.
with? Yeah. Okay. The yeah. Oh, oh God. Yeah. Robert Conquest, Harvest of Sorrow, and
Also,
um,
I would add to be careful. Robert Conquest is not be all and all um, authority on the topic of
yeah.
um, the
Of course.
Holodomor.
Yeah.
Like this
Yeah.
book is, apart from the introduction and a short summary of history, it only has archives, it only has documents, and this book, in no uncertain terms, says that the Holodomor was a genocide, and it claims that the documents presented in this book support this claim. So I have to vet through them and see.
Interesting. Yeah, because you know what I'll be interested in is if you can somehow upload the documents online, so then
Well,
I
I'd
can
have to
also look
translate
over
them
them.
from Polish
Oh,
or
oh,
Ukrainian. It's a
yeah, that would
Ukrainian
be
Polish book.
that's too much work. That's too much work. Yeah, never mind. um, God, if somebody were to pay you, and then
Would you pay me?
not me, stop. Okay, I'm talking about like a professor sponsor, like you could contact like an academic. I think some people might actually go like, you know what, you're doing good work. um, and we will fund your goals to add more resources for everybody out there to see, which is like, no matter if you agree or disagree, it's good to have more things come to light, especially people who were never had their voices, heard. I think would be good, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Um, Again, I'm not a lefty. I'm just a liberal. But I find that we managed to have a really good conversation about genocide. So I thought this was a productive, discussion.
That is what I strive for.
Yeah. Next time we can definitely talk about stuff like the Holodomor and stuff like that after I've read up more on it, at the
Mm-hmm.
very least. Yeah. For sure. Um.
Perfect.
Okay. Yeah. Awesome. Is there? I guess you want to shout yourself out.
Yes,
Yeah.
you should
Mhm.
go and uh, join my page, which is lucyhaze.org/live, and donate and subscribe to fund my research.
Based. Huzzah. It's not haze. It's huzzah.
Haze.
It's Haza. Haza.
Haze.
Okay.
Like the
Huzzah. Huzzah.
Haze.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Huzzah. Okay. Okay.
Lucy Haze.
Um. Yeah. Oh, wait. Can I shout myself out a little bit as
Of
well?
course.
Yeah.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah. Foodshops. I guess some people know me. Listen. Like, just forget about it. Okay. I mean, you already know who I am. It's fine. Well, I don't care at this point. Okay. Whatever. Yeah.
You don't care?
Like, it's just, look, if you want to find me, youtube.com @foodshops. All right, that's it.
Okay.
Oh, also, can you give me your link to Twitch and your YouTube? Oh, actually, no, I'll just post it in the chat afterwards.
Post
Honestly,
my
yeah.
page so people can donate and subscribe.
Oh, can you send me your page?
Also, have you debated Destiny?
I have debated Destiny on one thing.
Oh, what was it?
Uh, it was about
Did you win?
it was a it no, it was about specifically parasociality. But you have to keep in mind that at the time, I was very nervous, very early on, and whatever. And I haven't debated him since. Actually, no, wait, hold on. I did actually was
Win
on a
against
panel with
them.
yeah. I guess I was on a panel once, regarding uh with Destiny about Israel and Palestine.
Did you win?
Um, no, I think we all lost. I think Quibbles was the one that was also on there, and he was going 1v5, 1v6 against like everybody else basically,
Oh,
and
okay.
Lonerbox was also there too. So yeah, um, it was an interesting experience. I would say you can also watch that one. That one's up, but yeah.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Well
Um,
then,
E. Okay. All right. Well, if there's nothing else, then thank you so
thank you.
much, and have a
We'll
great
see
night
you.
or
Yeah.
day. See ya.
Thank you. Bye
Goodbye.
bye. Bye
See ya.
bye.